Joining us right now to talk more about this is White House National Economic Council Director Kevin Hassett. And Kevin, thank you for being with us this morning. Got a lot of questions and hoping you can give us a little insight into what's happening. First of all, are there talks taking place behind the scenes that could potentially stop these tariffs before they go in? Or is it your understanding that these will take effect at midnight tonight?
There have been a heck of a lot of talks over the weekend. You know, I've been in the White House for most of the weekend, and the thing I can say is that I think it's totally 100% being miscovered, this story. What you need to do is go back and read the executive order where President Trump was absolutely 100% clear that this is not a trade war, this is a drug war. There are perhaps 100,000 people last year that died of fentanyl, and the fentanyl is coming in across the Mexican and Canadian borders. 80, 90, 95% of Mexicans want the drug war to end, and the same is true in Canada. And I can tell you, I spent a lot of time in Canada. I was up in Alberta and walking on the rivers and fishing last summer, and I can tell you that there are places in big cities in Canada that look kind of like San Francisco because the drug war is being lost by this government in Canada as well. The good news is that in our conversations over the weekend, one of the things we've noticed is that the Mexicans are very, very serious about doing what President Trump said in the executive order, and that is getting more aggressive, much, much more aggressive about the drug war. But the Canadians appear to have misunderstood the plain language of the executive order, and they're interpreting it as a trade war. And I think that that's probably consistent with the policies that we've seen from this failed government in the past, where they've let their own drug problem get out of control. And instead of addressing the drug problem, they want to blame the U.S. and perhaps get some political benefit out of saying that Trump's tried to create a trade war. Why would he do that, with Canada and Mexico? This is 100% about a drug war. It's 100% about fentanyl. And more people died last year than died in the Vietnam War. And President Trump has vowed to Americans that he's going to make that stop.
All right, Kevin, this is really interesting. Just the idea that maybe there's something that could be negotiated. Let me just make sure that I'm understanding this correctly from you. There's something that could be negotiated in the next 24 hours, in the next several days, that would mean the tariffs would either not be put on or would come back if it were to satisfy President Trump's concerns about what's happening at the border and the protections there that are taking this. I mean, we're calling it a trade war because Canada has already said that they're going to retaliate across the board with tariffs on alcohol, coffee, clothing and shoes, furniture, household appliances, whiskeys, fruit from Florida, all of these issues. You're saying that this is really more of a negotiation to try and say, no, we want more focus on the border, and if you give that to us, these go away?
This is not what I'm saying. People need to read the executive order. President Trump has said this is about the fentanyl crisis, right? No, but so I don't know how somebody reads the executive order if you're Canada and then comes back and says, oh, we're going to start a trade war. We're saying we're really, really serious about going after fentanyl, and President Trump means it. And so there's all this fentanyl shipping across the borders. There, in the past, have been caravans of people parading across our border, carrying drugs and other things. And the response of our neighbors has not been, hey, we're going to help you stop this problem. It's go ahead and build a wall. So imagine, Becky, if I had like all this stuff going on in my house next to yours and all this stuff was leaking into your property. And then you say, Kevin, you got to stop all that crime in your place. And I'm like, hey, you know what? Becky, build a wall. That's disrespectful. And this is the attitude the president has towards what's going on right now. He wants them to be respectful of the United States and help solve the problem rather than feed it.
So this
and we've made a lot of progress with the Mexicans.
This is really just the opening. Okay, so Mexico is really where the biggest problem for fentanyl is. We had one of our reporters earlier this morning, I haven't seen these figures myself, say that something like only 40 pounds of fentanyl was found at the Canadian border versus a much huger position down in the south part of this border. This is a way to get people to the table to say we are going to attack this and work with you, and that would call off all of these tariffs that are going to be put in place?
President Trump will decide what he's going to call off and what he's not, but he wants everybody at the table.
And certainly there's not a clear set of standards that say if you do X, Y, and Z, this won't happen.
Well, they clearly haven't done it in the past, and the amount of organized crime in the fentanyl space in Canada is also very disturbing. And so it's not just a measure of like 40 pounds here and there. The fact is the president has set a very clear guideline for people to work with him collaboratively. These are some of our best trading partners and our best friends to solve this incredible problem that has been spinning out of control, and that they've not really been addressing. And again, in Edmonton last summer, I walked out of my hotel and they had an ambulance there helping somebody who had OD'd, sadly, on fentanyl. And then as I'm walking to my restaurant, 2 people get in a fight with the cops over drugs right there just in downtown Edmonton. And this is just my one day when I'm staying there. And the fact is that Canada is like San Francisco, and it's spreading to the U.S., and it needs to stop. And that's what the Canadian people want, and it's what the American people want too.
Kevin, I won't dissuade you of your views or perspectives. I think the question mark on all of this is, do you need to implement the tariffs to gain leverage in these negotiations? Were the threat of tariffs enough or not? I'm reading the Wall Street Journal, which historically has come out on the side of Republicans and conservatives. They call it the dumbest trade war. And there's a question of how long, again, to Becky's question, this goes on. You would imagine you'd have more leverage, frankly, the longer it goes on. But there's the flip side, which is how palatable it is for the American public to take whatever pain is inflicted in the short term as well.
The thing I would say, Aaron, and I hope Joe's feeling better, by the way. I miss him today. The thing that I would say is that in the end, what President Trump has not only created a lot of leverage for the United States in this negotiation, but he's given the politicians in Canada and Mexico an enormous amount of leverage, because the people of Canada, they don't want to have a drug war that they lose, and the people of Mexico don't either. And now, because President Trump has raised the level and made it clear that this is the #1 policy issue for the United States this weekend, then all people in Canada and Mexico will support actions by those politicians to get ahead of the curve on the drug war. And so I think he's doing the politicians a favor.
Kevin, if you were listening to any of the NHL games this weekend in Canada, they were booing the Star Spangled Banner. I mean, we are losing a lot of goodwill, and I just wonder, is this negotiation one that is simply on the drug trade, when you have President Trump also saying that Europe is next? Where does it come down with Europe? This seems like this is something that's being used more broadly, I understand it, to negotiate better positions for Americans. It seems like it is much more than a drug war.
This matter this weekend is 100% about the drug war, and I think that the outcome is likely to be very positive for Americans, Canadians, and Mexicans, because President Trump is forcing politicians throughout the continent to take this matter seriously, and there'll probably be a lot of cheers from Canadians as President Trump meets the Stanley Cup champions today, too, as well.